I'm on a quest. A quest to figure out why High Tide was banned from Pauper. To find this out, I played High Tide at my local game store the day before it got banned. In the first game, we found some really good reasons to why it got banned as we played a mirror match. It was spectacular. The video is right here. And I think today we might find some more common reasons why this deck was banned. High Tide is a very strong deck that's all about making a lot of mana, untapping all your lands, and drawing a whole bunch of cards. We don't play any creatures. Even worse, we play no permanents other than our lands. So for our opponent to interact with us, they need to either attack our hand with discard spells, or they need to fight with us for the spells on the stack. Talking about spells, here's the starting hand. This isn't the fastest hand. Seeing Stream of Thought in your opening is never that fun, but we've got everything we need. We got lands, we got draw spells, so we got a way to find High Tide, and we're set to win this game by turn 4. The plan is simple. I need to figure out what my opponent's playing and then play around whatever disruption he can have. And while I'm doing that, use my blue mana to improve my hand by finding High Tides and stuff that untap lands. My opponent plays a Thrapin Inspector, which is a 1-2 that makes a clue when it comes into play and then passes the turn. So I play Reach Through Depth and lets me look at the top 5 to find something. I hope to find a High Tide. And my opponent seems to be on some sort of white weenie deck, so I need to combo before I am somehow aggroed into Oblivion. I do find a High Tide, so perhaps I can actually win by turn 4 or 5 if I'm a little lucky here. And hopefully my opponent doesn't have anything too aggressive in his hand right now and just makes some more 1/1s. Instead, he plays an enchantment that gets +1/+1 and then Ethereal Armor, which gets the creature +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, make his creature 4/5. And suddenly that's a lot of aggro, and I'm down to 16. This is some sort of buffing deck that just buffs one creature forever, and I need to find a way to win before that creature becomes large enough to end me. So I have to find another High Tide as quick as possible and hope I can go off, not this turn, but next turn. I do not think that creature will become big enough to end the game on his turn 3. Now, I'm not running a lot of creature interaction myself. My strength is that people's creature interaction against me is unusable, but I don't have much myself because I'm supposed to combo before this happens. If my opponent has more Ethereal Armors right now, I might actually be taken down this turn, though I doubt it. My opponent has this Benevolent Blessing that gives the creature protection from blue, meaning even if I had a snap or something, it wouldn't help. I'm down to 11, and it's not looking great, because while I have the High Tides and I have things that could untap my lands, I don't actually have a draw spell in hand. So I can't win this turn. I need to pass the turn and hope I draw some sort of draw spell off the top of my decks next turn. And that my opponent doesn't... Oh, that's an Ethereal Armor. Each of those now buff for 4, making the creature a 9/9, plus 1 from the other enchantment, that's 10. So if my opponent has one more enchantment, it's... Oh... He had another blessing. Now the creature is like a 14/14. And he swings in and he wins game 1. No discards. Spells. Just a little guy. This it? Is this the 3rd High Tide deck? I didn't do anything. I just lost. No. Sometimes you have to realize it's not the deck. It's you. I'm the one not finding draw spells with my search cards. I'm the one using Lorien Reveal to find lands I don't need. I've made enough misplays this tournament. I have to snap out of it. We take out a Giga Rouse, a model, and a deep analysis, and we put in 3 snaps. I feel like Snap can win this matchup alone if I don't play into a protection spell. It's time I started actually playing this deck well. I like this hand. It has a lot of early spells I can use to find whatever I want with. Preferably either High Tide or Snap to make sure what happened last time doesn't happen again. 2 Lorien's Reveal isn't exactly what I want, but if I do start High Tiding a lot, I can cast those. I can find 3 cards and that usually wins the game. Let's have an epic game of Magic. I start my first turn with a Preordain, trying to fix my hand so I can find what I need to either hold my opponent back or go off as fast as possible. I do find a Snap, which will be really good, because if I can cast it when he plays a creature and tries to put an enchantment on it, that's a 2-for-1. He doesn't play a creature on turn 1, which I'm very happy about, but then I have to figure out what is the fastest way for me to win the game. And I think it's another Preordain, because I need to find more High Tides, Merchant Scrolls, anything that can really get me rolling. So I pass the turn, and it's my opponent's second turn, and I'm sure there's some sort of scary creature waiting in my future. He draws a card, he looks at his hand, and then he goes to discard and passes. He doesn't have a second land. Wow. I find my third land with a Lauren reveal. In a sense, I kind of understand why you would keep a risky hand. High Tide is a very fast deck, and you need to have something to go off with quickly against it. So if he was afraid of mulliganing down to 6 would give him slower cards, then I understand keeping a 1 land and hoping for the best, because his deck does seem like it could win with just 2 mana. I use a Merchant Scroll to find a Psychic Puppetry. That's the thing that makes it so all my arcane spells can untap my lands. Now, I do have to say to everyone out there, never keep a 1-lander unless your deck is elves or something, you know? I don't know about his deck, but I wouldn't keep a 1-lander. I pass. He does find the second planes, and now he has to really get going fast. He plays down an Outlaw Medic. It's a 1/3 with lifelink that when it dies, draws a card. And I use another Lorien Reveal to find another island, and now I have 4 islands. This is when I want to win. This is the turn I want to win. The first step in winning is playing your 4th island down, and the second one is casting your first High Tide. Now all my islands produce 2, so I tap that one for 2, and I play a second High Tide. Now I have 1 mana in the pool, and I spend 2 mana from a new land to cast a Read Through Depths. I splice onto it with the floating mana from the previous land, Psychic Puppetry, so not only do I get to look at the top 5 and pick a card from it and put it to my hand, I also get to untap a land. I find my second Psychic Puppetry, and now I tap 2 lands for 6 mana, and I cast another Reach Through Depths with both the Psychic Puppetry spliced onto it. So I look at the top 5, pick an instant or sorcery, put into my hand, I find a Deer's Bound, and then the Psychic Puppetries untap 2 of my lands, and I have 2 mana floating in my pool. I tap 2 lands, adding another 6 to my pool, playing this Ideas Bound with both of the Psychic Puppetry spliced onto it, and I now have 4 mana in my pool because I tapped the 6. I spend 2 of those mana to return the creature to his hand, and untapping 2 lands with a snap. I now have 12 mana on board and 2 in my pool. I want to tap a land that produces 3, so with an extra floating I find High Tide, and I cast a High Tide for that 1 floating. I should still have 2 floating, but I might have forgotten that, the person playing me game thing there. I tap another land, producing another 3 mana, and I splice 2 of the Psychic Puppetry onto the Reach Through Depths. We've seen this before, and I use one of the mana I had floating already. I find a Lorien Revealed, which while it's really good for card draw, it's less good because it can't untap lands as I play it. But on the other hand, I have so much mana, so I can just cast it and still have 2 lands more. So I have another 6 and I have 2 mana floating. Drawing 3 cards is really powerful. If you have a hard time keeping up with what I'm doing, don't worry. My opponent actually checked out at this point. He's no longer really keeping track of if I'm doing the things correctly, and just trusts that I'm doing it correctly. He is trying to keep up with it, but the problem is you have to know this deck even when you're playing against it, because the lines get really complicated and you have to keep track of my floating mana, how many lands are on tap, what I'm drawing, what I'm doing. And eventually, one of the problems of the deck is your opponent has to understand every step you're doing to see if you're not cheating. And that's a lot to ask someone who's not piloting the deck. The main thing to know is that each Psychic Puppetry untaps 1 land each time I play an instant or sorcery with the word Arcane on it. Anything that's not an Arcane does not generate mana back. And that's what you have to keep mainly track of. Am I running out of mana? And am I running out of draw spells? When to attack is really hard to know if you haven't piloted the deck yourself. The second thing I want you to know is my opponent was like interjecting, saying if I did things wrong, saying if I added the wrong amount of mana. And we got into like short little, oh, but that's because of this and this. And that's really the problem with the deck. What you're seeing here is a heavily cut down edited version. This took so much more time than what I'm showing you, simply because I have to keep my opponent on board with what I'm doing, and I have to do everything correctly as well. And there's a lot of thinking as well about what spell to get at what point. For example, here I played a Merchant Scroll, but instead of finding High Tide, I find more Psychic Puppetries. Now, how do I actually win with this deck? There's a card named Petals of Insight, which is an arcane spell that costs 5 mana, which either draws 3 cards or returns itself to your hand once you cast it. Now, if you can keep casting an arcane spell for 5 mana, splicing enough of the things onto it that untap lands, you then make infinite mana, and that's the plan. Here I draw a bunch of cards and I show my opponent the Petals of Insight, and with the Psychic Puppetries, that generates positive mana each time I cast it, thereby netting me as much blue mana as I could possibly want. And then I follow it up with the good old Stream of Thought. I've been casting a lot of those lately, and I mill my opponent for every card in his library, and then I pass the turn, and the game is over. When your opponent has one land and doesn't draw a second, you always feel kind of like, okay, great, I won. I'll take all the wins. If my opponent decides to pull a one-lander, I'll take the win. I get why, because you do have to win fast to beat this deck, but at the same time, never keep a one-lander. The starting hand, exactly what we want. Some spells to shape our hand. We don't really want the Stream of Thought right away, but you know what? We don't have to go looking for it, so this game could end fast. And I don't mean as in a few turns. I mean as in, like, when I start going off, I don't have to spend 20 minutes looking for Stream of Thought because it's in my hand already, you know? My opponent chooses a hero, the Armored Armadillo. It's a problem for me because it has Ward 1, so I can't snap it as easily. But it's really good for me because it only has 0 power. So even when it starts being buffed, that lack of power is gonna save me some life and time. My opponent then plays an Ethereal Armor, giving it +1/+1 for every enchantment on the board, which is just 1, and he swings in, putting me to 19. If it gains protection from blue, I might be in trouble. I can't snap it this turn, but I'm lucky I didn't play a Brainstorm or Preordain turn 1 for some reason, because it means I can play both this turn and really improve the quality of my hand. Had I been able to do that anyway? Yes, because I had another Preordain in my hand. I don't know why I wasted my turn 1 mana. That seems like a terrible play, but who am I to judge? Well, I'm me, so I can judge myself. My opponent plays another Ethereal Armor, and that gives the creature +2/+2 for every Ethereal Armor, which is +4/+4, and suddenly that's 4 damage, and I'm down to 15. My opponent does find a second land. It's a tapped one though, which is really good, because it means I'm slowed down a little bit. And then I have this Snap, and it's basically a 3-for-1 that untaps 2 of my lands, and I can only imagine that that sets my opponent very far back. And I also get to play a Merchant Scroll and find a High Tide, because Snap untaps 2 lands when you play it. And those 2 mana I can then spend to find this High Tide with a Merchant Scroll, which is a really good turn for me. And now my opponent has to find a new way to apply pressure really quickly. I have the feeling that if my opponent had an untapped land, or a second and third land, perhaps he could have made it so I couldn't bounce the Armadillo so easily. And then an Armadillo with 2 Ethereal Armors could have been very lethal for me on turn 3. Instead, he has to replay 2 Armadillos and pass the turn for my turn 4. I still only have a single High Tide in hand, so I don't think I can win this turn, so I'm gonna play a Brainstorm to go look for a second High Tide, and if I get to, maybe I can go off this turn, or maybe I'll have to wait another turn and try to win by turn 5. The 2 0/4s on the other side of the board don't look so threatening, because I don't assume my opponent has any more Ethereal Armors to put on them. Whatever buffs he has probably cannot reach 15 damage in one turn. I play a Merchant Scroll, and with that Merchant Scroll, I find another High Tide, and now I'm set off to win on the next turn. I present my library to being cut, my opponent cuts it, and then I play a Preordain, but I don't actually need anything especially. I have both the High Tides, I have things that can untap lands, so the only thing I would really want is even more Arcane spells, or perhaps Psychic Puppetry, and it would be guaranteed almost that I win on the next turn. My opponent probably also knows it and has to consider what are his outs to winning the game at this point. He either has to do 15 points of damage this turn, or have white interaction that can stop me from winning the game. He decides to go with a Hyena Umbra, which gives +1/+1 to his Armadillo, and attacks me for 1, putting me to 14. I will admit right now that when I get the turn, I do not think at all about the fact my opponent has 2 open mana. In my brain, it's, oh, that's white mana. It cannot disturb me at all. All I think about is executing my plan as correctly as possible. We start with a High Tide, and then 2 more High Tides. And now all our lands taps for 3 blue. And you know how it goes. We play pieces of the puzzle. It looks at the top 5. I can take 2 instant sorceries from them and put them into my hand. Now the plan is to untap enough lands and draw enough cards and not run out of either. With 3 High Tides already going, it's gonna be really hard to break here, especially because I see both a Psychic Puppetry and an Ideas Unbound, which is exactly what I need. There we go. I remember to take both of them. And with that, I can play an Ideas Unbound by tapping one land and even splicing the Psychic Puppetry onto it to untap a land, basically drawing 3 cards for free. I could possibly just draw a bunch of lands in a row, of course, and that's why my opponent has to stick this out. He also probably has some sort of card he can play to try and disrupt me at some point, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking about how to find that Petals of Insight so I can generate infinite mana, because I already have Stream of Thought in hand, and if I cast that with infinite mana, I win the game. So all I'm doing right now is digging for the Petals of Insight, because that presents infinite mana right now. I find a Ideas Unbound with my Reach Through Depths, and I untap one land, making it free. And now I have an Ideas Unbound to draw another 3 cards if I want. My opponent is now reminding me that actually all my lands tap for 4 mana because I played 3 High Tides. So I'm actually floating mana each time I've done this, meaning I have several blue mana in my mana pool at this point. I play the Ideas Unbound, I splice on the Psychic Puppetry that costs 3, the land produces 4, so that's another mana in my mana pool, and it untaps the land thanks to the Psychic Puppetry. And we do as we did last game, we keep drawing, we keep untapping, and my opponent is keeping up with it, looking for some moment to do something, but I don't know what it is, and frankly, at this point, I don't care. I am riding the high of drawing cards. Now, this time it didn't take forever to get my full combo going at the very least, because I already had Stream of Thought, so I don't have to dig through my full library for that. I just had to go find other Psychic Puppetry and this Petals of Insight, and then I have infinite mana. My opponent looks at his hand, I untap my land and present the loop that gives infinite mana. I don't know why I play this Lorien Revealed. I think perhaps I'm looking for a counterspell to back up this Stream of Thought that's gonna win the game, but that doesn't matter either because it has Replicate. And here we go. I mill my opponent for infinite, and he shows me a Throbbing Charm, which can exile my graveyard at instant speed, but that actually doesn't help against this deck because it doesn't use its graveyard, and that's what he had. It was a good game though. My opponent had to try to do something. A Throbbing Charm is very good in this format, however it doesn't do anything against High Tide. And here we see why High Tide is so powerful. Most of your cards, all of the cards, do nothing to stop the combo. With other graveyard focus combos, you just bring in the card that stops them and you win the game. Now the main problem with High Tide, of course, isn't that it is extremely powerful. We saw that the main problem was that whenever I wanted to win, I had to sit there for at least 10 to 5 minutes. Now a deck feeling bad to play against isn't really a reason to ban it. The fact that this was against an aggressive deck is the only reason this went so fast. Played against someone who knew my deck very well and could even help me play it correctly. Imagine if I played against someone with a slower deck who had to ask every time I took a game action. That's the problem with the deck. Anyways, it was really fun to play it. I have 2 more matches. Let me know if you want to see them. Have a great time. I'll see you soon. Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Bye.